Also, in other crazy news, a United Nations member country has now declared that they have a new legal tender, and it is cryptocurrency. This is totally a legit thing, and this is fascinating. Specifically, the Marshall Islands. And if you don't know much about the Marshall Islands, it's not a huge population. I want to say it's around 50,000 or so people as part of Micronesia, and they have declared that they have their own sovereign cryptocurrency. This is absolutely fascinating. And so I dug it up, and here is the actual declaration from the Republic of the Marshall Islands that they have. They call it the Declaration and Issuance of the Sovereign Currency Act 2018. And it's actually not that long. I found multiple things are fascinating here. One, this was a law that was signed and passed on. This is the formal government letterhead and all that, that comes from this nation, and it's for something as intense and widely used as what currency is their legal tender, and the whole thing is only 8 pages long. Side note to everyone in the EU, the United States, and everywhere else, where a simple law that tells them that they should replace a toilet on the 3rd floor ends up taking 127 pages. Maybe we need to take a note or two from the Marshall Islands on how to draft up a law so it's actually readable. I read the whole thing. It was very, very straightforward. You can find this online. If you just search for literally the Declaration and Issuance of the Sovereign Currency Act 2018, you'll just find it and you just read it. It takes like 10 minutes. It's amazing. And here's a short little clip from it. This act may be cited as the Declaration and Issuance of the Sovereign Currency Act. The purpose of this act is to declare and issue a digital decentralized currency based on blockchain technology as legal tender of the Republic of Marshall Islands. This is fascinating. This was from Reuters. So I'm going to read a quote here from Reuters here, because I thought this was just truly fascinating. The new currency will be called SOV, S-O-V, or sovereign, and its legal tender status has been approved by the country's parliament. In an interview with Reuters on Tuesday. This is the way of the future, said David Paul, Minister and Assistant to the President of the Marshall Islands. As a country, we reserve the right to issue a currency in whatever form it is, whether in digital or fiat form. Fascinating. He goes on, this creates legal certainty for its use because all jurisdictions have laws in place for dealing with legal tender, whereas private cryptocurrencies are dealt with differently in different jurisdictions. This is kind of an interesting concept here. It goes on. I have some thoughts on this. SOV, S-O-V, is based on what the Marshall Islands government calls the Yakwe framework, Y-A-K-W-E. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, which requires users to identify themselves on the blockchain, solving the anonymity problems that have plagued Bitcoin and precluded its mainstream adoption. Now that's kind of an interesting side point all by itself. I mean, many people would say, well, that goes against the very ideas of a cryptocurrency and whatnot. If you have an identifying mark on the blockchain that says, these transactions trace back to me, that does away with maybe some of the anonymous benefits of a cryptocurrency. But in this particular case, it kind of bridges something that was necessary in order to get widespread adoption, at least within this country and with banks that do business with it. Paul said that because Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are anonymous, they are not compatible with the framework of a regulated banking environment. And he's probably right there. I mean, whether you agree with whether they should be doing this that way or not, based on the current laws and how the current banking system works, having it completely anonymous just really doesn't tie in very well together. And he goes on, it was clear that there was a huge market need for a non-anonymous blockchain system that can operate within a regulated environment. Part of the proceeds from the initial coin offering, yeah, they're doing an initial coin offering on this. I don't know. I don't think they've released the dates on that yet, but they're going to do an ICO. Will be used to help finance the Marshall Islands National Trust Fund. The United States contributes to the fund intended to support future generations. Now, the really fascinating part here is this, at least to me. This is a cryptocurrency. it is designated legal tender by a sovereign nation. Now, the Marshall Islands is a sovereign nation that has, they've been sovereign, I want to say for 20 or 30 years now. But they have I can't remember exactly what the phrase is, but they have an agreement with the United States where the United States provides for the Marshall Islands defense. And they also utilize some of the United States services, like the Postal Service. The U.S. Postal Service services the Marshall Islands. So there's a relationship there. And they also have until now been using the US dollar as their legal tender. And now they have two legal tenders, the US dollar and the sovereign cryptocurrency. But what's really fascinating to me is because this nation is a recognized member of the United Nations, that means that basically anyone who does business inside the United Nations kind of has to start accepting in some way this cryptocurrency from the Marshall Islands, which means they're kind of forcing their hand to start accepting cryptocurrency, at least this particular one. Now, that said, this is not the only government-run cryptocurrency in the world. It's the first one where it's been declared as legal tender by a United Nations recognized sovereign nation. But this is not the first or only cryptocurrency out there backed by a government. In fact, there's one called Petro that actually just opened up in February. It is a cryptocurrency, and this is from Wikipedia, developed by the government of Venezuela. And it is claimed to be backed by the country's oil and mineral reserves and is intended to supplement Venezuela's plummeting bolivar currency, purportedly as a means of circumventing U.S. sanctions and accessing international financing, which is fascinating. And the real weird thing about this one here is that the White House actually issued an executive order back on March 19th, so just 10 days ago, to just squelch that, to basically say, no, nobody gets to do business. So this is an actual executive order. I got this from whitehouse.gov. It's called Executive Order on Taking Additional Steps to Address the Situation in Venezuela. All right, but here's a direct quote from that executive order. Section 1A, all transactions related to provision of financing for and other dealings in by a United States person or within the United States, any digital currency, digital coin, or digital token that was issued by, for, or on behalf of the government of Venezuela on or after January 9th, 2018 are prohibited as of the effective date of this order, which was March 19th. So yeah, it's fascinating. So the government, U.S. government has basically said, no, this is off limits. You cannot be involved in this cryptocurrency from Venezuela. However, the Marshall Islands situation is entirely different because the Marshall Islands has a very, very close relationships with the United States. And basically, they're going about it in such a way as to try and push forward the adoption of the banking industry internationally of at least this one cryptocurrency. I'm not sure how it's going to end up, but I think that's absolutely fascinating to watch. I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's bad. I don't know if it's in the middle, but it's weird. This clip of the Lunduke Show is brought to you in part by Purism. They make laptops filled with free software, good feelings, and hardware kill switches to protect your privacy. Find out more at Purism, PURI.SM. And if you need more, head on over to patreon.com/Brian Lunduke for the full-length version of today's show.